Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today's live session. For those of you that, or if this is the first time that you're joining one of SAMexpert's webinars, I'm Daryl Luman. I'm a partner at SAMexpert, and you could say my responsibility is negotiations, all types of negotiations, audits, contract renewals, and everything in between. So, welcome. Today's, you could call it the first episode in a series of webinars that I've put together. I like the title. I put together a title, but that's just you need something that's marketing. Got a nice marketing buzz. Basically, it's Microsoft Enterprise Strategy, reclaiming control in the age of AI. I know AI is a big buzzword, but it is really gaining control because everything's out of control. Spend is out of control, budgets are out of control, um, huge buzz around AI and Copilot and everything else that's around that. So I want to take this opportunity in the next few weeks to start framing how to negotiate, what to negotiate, how to approach it, and try put all the buzz aside. Buzz is important; it drives our industry, but again, still we need to frame it because budgets aren't limited.
Can I
So
chip in a second on that, Daryl, please?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think you're absolutely right to name this age of AI, because if you look at Microsoft's strategy and look at it's not even hidden, it's public. Some of these things, anything that you hear that is leaked from Microsoft is always a controlled leak. We know that. They almost said that. Didn't Satya openly say, nobody's going to care about Office in 3 years? It's all going to be about agents, all about AI, and it's an important change. But I think what we need to take everybody, especially the procurement people, from this is that it's not just AI as is; it's the pricing models of other products, which Daryl talk about as well. They're also trying to adjust to that pay-as-you-go, need to be controlled on a daily basis paradigm. There's a lot of change going on in Microsoft's vendor management this year. So yeah, we can call it an age of AI, absolutely rightfully, but be vigilant. Open your eyes and ears and listen and learn, because Microsoft is shifting in a completely different direction to what they've been doing for the last 30, 40 years.
I totally agree with you, Sasha. I think we are at the early stages of the AI licensing uh, um, revolution or paradigm change, whatever you want to call it. We are just starting to see it now with the introduction of new metrics around agents, for example, and Microsoft saying it out really, really well. Satya's voicing it very loudly everywhere we can. Agents, 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 and he's not the only one. The whole industry is talking about it, um, and we'll start seeing different types of licensing models coming out. I'll have a session. One of my sessions is going to be how I view the future of licensing. I've got a white paper or a post on LinkedIn somewhere about it. So if you want to just look it up. But in any case, we are still in the age of licensing as we know it today, with the nuances of Azure and 365, of course, and everything else that's coming. So what I want to walk you through today is basically that we all we've all been dealing with enterprise agreement renewals for years now, and I've talked about how to negotiate contracts, how to negotiate better deals, pricing, benchmarking, many, many, many times. I want to take you on a different journey today, and I'm not going to be talking about benchmarking. So if you are waiting to hear what's the best price available today, what's the benchmarking, available out there, targets. I'm not going to be talking about that today. That's not the subject. Today, I want to be talking about strategic preparation, alignment, and it's mostly internal, actually. Now, what I see is that most organizations, well, I'll be careful. Many organizations underestimate their own strategic value in the eyes of Microsoft. And again, I'm talking about Microsoft, but this is right for the this is the same approach for any of the big vendors, if it's AWS, Google, Oracle, IBM, and many others today that are out there that are substantial. Um Organizations really approach Microsoft from a place, what I think is a place of weakness, because they fixate on discounts, only on benchmarking, SKUs, spreadsheets, um, while Microsoft is actually thinking strategically. They're thinking 3, 5, 10 years ahead. And you need to start thinking exactly in the same way. So you need to be crystal clear on understanding your organization prior to understanding where Microsoft is going. Both are equally important, but the first stage is many times overlooked. So he has a big idea. It's actually not that big. It's obvious, but it's missed again and again. Before you negotiate with Microsoft, you need to align internally. Wow. Okay. Um, and if you do that right, the entire negotiations changes. It's not only about savings, it's about a strategic pivot in your business. And that's how I want you to think as the representative of your organization. In this negotiation, in this process, I want you to think strategically. Where are you in this journey? How do you impact the process? We'll talk about your role as I go through some of the points today that I want to discuss, and how important it is for you as an individual representing your organization, and your role in this. So let's start off with the first point, strategic awareness. So, what's driving Microsoft? I touched on it initially, and you need to just understand this, because when you start talking internally, you need to talk and understand the language that Microsoft, uh, or the way that how is Microsoft thinking, and what are your peers, your executive board, what are they being, how are they being influenced by media, by social platforms? What information are they hearing all the time? Because they are being bombarded by buzzwords, by initiatives, um, and you need to understand what's happening in what are they being exposed to, because that is their understanding of Microsoft. Now, let's not forget, Microsoft is shifting from licensing to type of, I don't know, let's call it the full Microsoft platform monetization. And that's not driven by old school licensing anymore. Okay, that's out the door. Let's forget about it. It's Copilot, it's security, it's Azure. And what does that mean? That the Microsoft growth really is pushing sales teams. They're putting them under immense, intense pressure to push, first of all, AI, and to get organizations to start adoption. So this is classic Microsoft. And actually, there's no difference in their strategy today than their strategy 20 years ago, when they introduced Windows, or 25 years ago when they introduced Windows, or when they introduced SQL, when everybody was using Oracle. And then I can go on and go on, and I can give endless examples. The technology has changed, as it always does, but Microsoft is first pushing the licenses or the product by pushing licenses into the organization. And once those licenses have been purchased at discounts, free of charge, it doesn't really matter how it's pushed into the organization. That's when the second stage of that is when we'll start seeing Microsoft's push for adoption. It usually takes 12 to 18 months after the initial wave of sales takes place. It's happened previously, it's going to happen now. So that's the first stage, pushing licenses aggressively. Keep in mind that an EA, as an EA, enterprise agreement, is no longer the primary play. Uh, they moving customers, that's you, towards MACCs, MCA-Es, CSP, and basically anything that is commitment based. And we all understand that commitment based um, metrics, and that's primarily where we are today, just reduce flexibility. So the days of old school true ups, redundant software that you can remove and stop paying for because you don't need software assurance, all those type of old metrics and considerations are really dead or dying. And Microsoft is pushing aggressively towards everything that's commitment based. You also need to be aware that Microsoft is under global scrutiny and EU regulatory pressure. It's increasing. Um, Again, I always recommend that you read up what's happening in your region or what's happening globally, even between the EU or other countries, of course, and the US in regard to the trade war that, you can call it a trade war, you can call it realignment of wealth. Everybody's got a different way of looking at it. You can ask Trump; he's got his own very very specific lens of reviewing this. But this again is changing and fluctuating. Um, the way that Microsoft is looking at it, and the way that your organization potentially at a high level, at a C level, is viewing what's happening with Microsoft. So it's much more. Again, it's much more than licensing and SKUs. It's security, it's regulatory pressure, it's trade wars, it's tariffs. A lot's going on, especially if you're a large organization, um, and you need to deal with all this. And you've got and you've got a global presence, got subsidiaries, got affiliates, and so on and so on. So again, you need to really get yourself acquainted because this is the new, this is the era of Microsoft negotiations these days. So the better you understand Microsoft's motivations, it's basically going to help you counter the tactics with some really, really important strategic insight.
So, Daryl,
Yeah, please.
there's always it's always difficult in live events like this to thread a very thin line between upsetting people and actually telling the truth that they need to hear. So from your experience, since you're driving this whole department in our organization, how many, I'm not talking about quantities, but just rough assessment, what you see, how many organizations are truly aware of what is going on in Microsoft right now, and are they ready? And if they're not, that's the second question, continuation of that.
So, as you know, I'm a very blunt um, speaker. I voice my opinion. I believe that maybe 25 to 35% of organizations really understand what's happening and are prepared for what's coming. The majority are like with every new technology and shift, fumbling a bit in the dark, trying to find their way. Very legitimate. This is not me scrutinizing anyone. We are learning. Okay? We are learning through actual negotiations. There's no playbook out there, no guide out there, even for us. And we are experienced. Okay, I'm experienced. I've been doing this for many years. So the only way to really learn is actually doing it. and you need to fumble a bit, and and you are going to make mistakes, and that's very, very legitimate. I want you to make as little mistakes as possible. Minimize those mistakes. You will. We do. Okay. I take responsibility for mistakes that we make. We try and minimize the risk as we go forward. Understand what's happening from contract to contract, from negotiation to negotiation, from customer to customer. Yes, of course, we learn. We're learning the new norms in Microsoft, because Microsoft's also changing a bit of their thinking. Their incentives are changing. Their internal account management incentives. Um, uh, and we're deviating a bit. I want to go back in a second. Even titles of individuals are changing in Microsoft. I don't know if you've noticed it. I'd love to hear maybe some feedback from the audience today. I've seen Microsoft like fluff out the titles of what people. So it's not like it's no longer regional director. It's leadership role in. So even
Mm.
Microsoft's like trying to adapt to a new language. Uh, 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 it's all a lot of marketing buzz. So always try and put that aside and see what's happening in front of you.
Mm.
So
Thank you.
thank you for that, Sasha. Let me just move on a bit. I've got a lot to cover. I'm just let's just continue this my current thought process. So let's just talk about what I look at as, well, maybe I'm going to use the wrong word, but anyway, the AI adoption trap. Now, I mentioned that a minute ago. Copilot is really Microsoft's new shiny growth engine, and that's going to be driving their revenue. Let's not get mixed up. It's going to be driving this entire. Well, it's already driving this huge, huge multi-billion-dollar industry of ours. Um, but what I want you to be aware of is you need to. I don't want you to buy out of hype, and because everybody else is doing it. And I've seen large organizations purchase tens and thousands of Copilot licenses based on hype without any real business case or ROI justification. It will come. I'm not against AI. Don't misunderstand me. I'm all for it. Yet we're still running a business, or you're still running a business. You've got budgets. You've got targets. So again, hype is hype. ROI is ROI. Old school. Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. Understand what bundles are out there, what the usage models are out there. Again, the basic stuff about AI. Also, price lock in. Understand if there's any business value. Again, AI is great. A lot of buzzwords, but again, take it down to the normal business um, 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 preparation and good old budget and revenue and targets and justification um, ROIs that are out there. That really hasn't changed. So let's just talk about the strategic internal alignment. So you've done your preparation, you've looked outside, you've read, you've educated yourself. Um, the first stage really starts with executive level conversation. So you're in a position now to talk to your CIO, CISO, CISO, your security officer. That's super important these days. Cloud leaders, finance, legal. Legal is really important these days, especially at the start of um, negotiations. Don't look at your EA in isolation. Even if your MACC isn't up for renewal, align on total Microsoft spend and strategy. Super important. Microsoft likes to separate the negotiations of EAs from MACCs, and usually most organizations have different start and end dates these days. Uh, and by the way, it's done on purpose. This is not by mistake. Microsoft doesn't by error or just happens to be that your MACC isn't aligned with your EA. and it's not by coincidence that they will not align your start date of your MACC and your EA midterm. Very, very difficult to do, because then you're going to be basically utilizing or leveraging your overall Microsoft spend for negotiations. Wow, that's crazy thinking. You actually leverage your entire spend with one vendor. No, Mac is Mac, EA is EA, unified is unified. So nothing is done by error. Everything's thought out and planned. So you need to standard stuff when you talk to your executive management, and I'm sure you've all, well, most of you have done this before. Maybe not on that level. Is you really need to start top down. So this is a top down approach. Understand how your executives are thinking. What are they exposed to? All this hype that we discussed. Um, do they even understand how the hype is going to impact your enterprise agreement renewal, how it's going to impact your budgets? Somebody might have put in a budget in 3, 4, 6 months ago for the renewal, but nobody took into consideration 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 co-pilot licenses that the CEO wants, that he wants to be part of this AI era. Um, does he really understand how it's going to impact your budget? Is there a separate budget? Is it part of your current budget? Is it really Copilot that you need now? What are the alternatives out there? What are the business cases? What do you want to do with that? So this is the kind of education and conversations you need to have. And of course, everything around security is I'll say, to my opinion, is still number one on, it should be number one on your checklist even before AI. But again, that's just my approach. Again, treat this as a strategic internal checkpoint, not a procurement workflow. Super important. Not a procurement workflow. This is not just another SKU Excel sheet and renewal. This is strategic. Um, I mentioned this briefly. I'll talk about this. I want to talk about it slightly more. Everything to do about defining and protecting your budget. So again, this is standard stuff, but I see this changing, and I'm going to give you an example in a minute. Every negotiation just needs a realistic um, budget, something that you can enforce, that you actually do enforce. We see it too often that budgets are flexible, and really they're only in one direction. They go up. I've never seen one go down. um, and when I always think that, I get a budget, we get as SAMexpert, we organizations put a budget on the table and say, this is our target. Do not exceed this. So on and so, and we work towards that. And then at the last minute, um, all of a sudden, again, a new shiny product or tech is brought into the negotiations, and out of nowhere, and I'm always surprised because it derails the strategy. A new bucket of um, budget is found coming from somewhere in the organization, millions usually. We're talking in large sums of money. So, and then the budget that was, I don't know, 30 million all of a sudden grows to 33.5 million out of nowhere. And uh, a week ago, we were like, everybody was shouting and screaming, don't exceed 30 million. We're getting that. So I always, I'm surprised that I'm never surprised that budgets are flexible. So you really need to understand what your budget is. And do you have a buffer? What's that buffer? Where is it coming from? And then again, what's the escalation path once you go over that budget? I like targets that, that somebody puts a target in front of me, and I know what my my wiggling position is. Uh, what does that negotiation field look like? My right, my right field, my left field. Where can I move? And I think you, as negotiators, as the prime contact, you need to understand as well. And again, you deserve not to have surprises. Uh, going into the negotiations. Now, once you've gone through this top-down evaluation, discussion, alignment, you need to, of course, go bottom up now, just validate it. So just make sure that everybody below the C level, directors and so on, are aligned, that actually it's aligned with your product roadmap, with decisions taken, with other products that have been purchased, other bundles that you might have in place that are going to that have the same type of technology that maybe you're going to be getting anyway in your enterprise agreement. So just make sure that confirm the resource realities, license usage, user profiles. Just support your strategy. Again, nothing new here. Avoid late stage surprises that are basically going to blow up in your face um, going forward.
Daryl, I have a couple of questions before you
Please.
move on. Um, you talk about internal alignment. Obviously, we have the reality of executives at board level often talking to Microsoft's executives at board level. The bigger the company is, the more direct that contact is, and there's this phenomenon of golf course deals. And as much as we try to make people aware of this, kind of prepare your C level, it's still happening. It's the reality, because the desire for every, especially business owner, founder, is to grow the business. And sometimes you think, we are founders as well in SAMexpert. I want this shiny thing because I think it's going to move our organization forward. That is the reality. Then we have different level of financial motivation. So C level and board, they could actually think strategically. Think about normal any organization management framework. It usually looks ahead 5 years, at least 3 years. So I guess teaching those the C level board that their Microsoft investment also needs to be seen in a 5-year perspective. It should fall on already what's the word I'm looking for, fertile ground. Then you have CFOs, and CFOs are in the middle of long-term strategy because they're still on the C level, and firefighting maybe 1 to 3 year issues and realigning, or always steering the car, because CFOs basically they're the captains of the ship. But then we have procurement, which always have been the biggest tool of CFOs to keep budgets under control and tackle. Really looking at 1 year ahead, honestly. Let's be honest. I mean, there's a particular task. We have an agreement upcoming. Please negotiate it. Please make sure that the budget stays as low as possible. There may be different targets, but it's always as low as possible, and squeeze as much value out of that as possible. And procurement is mostly motivated by those short-term wins. That's the truth. Not every procurement person. I'm not gonna generalize here, but this is the majority of what we're seeing. And then the biggest pain for procurement is that in the age of AI and pay-as-you-go licensing, they're also losing control, because now they can't really deliver savings. Because if you used to buy 1,000 licenses and you could negotiate the price on 1,000 licenses, and then it's a done deal, you've saved. Now you're effectively asking Microsoft, we probably will spend $100 million with you on Azure. So could you please give us like a generic discount on all the pay-as-you-go services and reservations, maybe 15% of your price list? But then how that money is spent is already not in the procurement area of control. Normally, there are exceptions. So we have this whole bunch of individuals. I'm not even bringing in IT into this whole scheme, with various focuses, short-term focus, long-term focus. How do we make sure that they are all aligned? Are there any tips you can give for success of that? Because you can see they may be pulling this entire ship in different directions.
So I think just it's just it's reality that everyone is putting in a different direction. The alignment there needs to be some kind of common ground, because C-level executives have a completely different view, and this is the way it should be, of where the business is going. and how to drive the business. They see what everyone else doesn't see. Okay, and that's the way it should be. Um, Procurement I think have got the most challenging of jobs possible. And you touched on it. I'm not going to repeat it, but you touched on every single challenge they have: budget, savings, uh, um, future alignment, predictability. Sorry, just everything's gone out the door. It's a whole new era. And I think, the procurement is, they need to realign their skills, and they need to realign their position within the organization. Um, so I think there needs to be like some kind of common ground, and the common ground needs to be a realistic view of, yes, old school, what can the organization spend on new tech? So you have your run rate of your business, and then you've got the new tech. What happens is that in today's, because everything's subscription and Azure and cloud, it gets all bundled up together, and then it's like an impossible. Um, um, there's a saying I like the sheet's too short. Two people are trying to cover themselves. One's putting right, one's putting. It's always going to be too short because there are different requirements within the organization. There's the standard day-to-day tech and requirements, and then there's the new shiny stuff. Separate that. So you need to align. That's going to be the common ground. That needs to be something in common, and then you can start putting together the various pieces of the puzzle. But I think that there are going to be, I think the gap between the various individuals and how each individual or each person in a different position sees the overall picture is going to actually, the gap's going to grow over time. So the very, very likely, before alignment comes, there's going to be more controversial approaches within the organization. And that's where, I'm going to say it straight out, shit's going to happen. Um, let me get you an example in 5 minutes, and I'm going to talk exactly about how things go wrong and what happens when they do go wrong. So I am aware of the time. So if I may, I want to just move over a bit to the
Hmm.
next stage. So uh, really, the next stage is, I'm going to say, standard. I'm not even going to talk about this in this presentation or in today's talk. Build a really good negotiation strategy. Again, I've got multiple um, webinars about negotiation strategy. I've got white papers. Go out there, have a look for it. I'm not going to talk about it today. But again, you need to put a really, really well defined negotiation strategy and align it internally, align it top down, align it bottom up.
Okay. Well,
I want
thank
to talk.
you.
I want to talk about an example, Sasha. Exactly what we just touched on. So um, we wrapped up a very large enterprise agreement, or not very large, medium-sized organization, around 20,000. I'm just um, 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 changing the numbers a bit, so it's not obvious who it is, for Microsoft, of course. Around 20,000 users. We started with a very, very clear strategy to renew E3 plus very specific targeted security SKUs. No E5, no Copilot. We had full executive alignment, leveraged Azure spend, future Copilot potential, mapped out relationship history, and we negotiated for 2 months. We pushed back against E5, upsell by Microsoft again and again and again, and we were moving. Okay, we were moving the gauge on the E3 plus security. components. Around 2 to 3 weeks prior to signature, what we expected to happen happened. Microsoft circumvented the core negotiation team, went straight to the executives, and despite preparation, I call it internal cracks emerged. So the CISO uh, that was strongly opposed to E5 stayed really um, well stayed true to his strategy. No E5, no additional security components. He had what he wanted already, and he knew exactly where he wanted to go. But the CIO, for whatever reasons he had, was influenced by Microsoft executives and started to shift towards the E5. So what Microsoft did, of course, they sweetened the deal for E5, brought it almost in par with the E3, added in some nice benefits, um, and at the last minute, I'm really saying at the last minute, an E5 deal was closed. So now you can say, well, they got more for less. Yes and no. They got more, yes. Paid the more or less the same price, plus minus in the short term, yes. But what happened? It caused internal political unrest, a rift in relationships internally between high level executives and lower level, not lower level, but the core negotiation team. Fractured internal alignment. And basically, what happened is Microsoft understood, and internally everybody understood, that there was no cohesive internal strategy. What about what's going to happen in 5, 10 years? What's going to happen with the security components that have been purchased? Um, that shouldn't happen. So we need to be aware of that. And so it's not only about the money; it's about how you drive technology and alignment internally, and what a negotiation can actually, how it can fracture the internal structure and tech leaders within the organization. And I can give you another example exactly on the other side, where a small organization, much better alignment, very similar case, very, very similar case, under 5,000 users, small organization, as I said, relatively, again. And they stayed true to their position. And once Microsoft understood, even at the last minute, that they were true to their position, the dynamic shifted. Um, Discounts on E3 plus a very specific SKU, security SKU was, I think it was Defender, if I'm not mistaken. Um, um, Last minute discounts were improved, uh, again, to keep the relationship and various other initiatives that were going on internally, and the organization stayed aligned, internal alignment, and that allowed the organization to move forward with Microsoft and get their respect as well. So respect is important, not because of ego. It's because how you work together with Microsoft, how you work internally within your organization.
Is that case,
Awesome.
Daryl, where rare case when the golf course deal didn't work? The execs were actually completely aligned with the
Because they were
procurement.
aligned. And yes, I'll tell you the big difference between the two examples. And I noticed it from the start. I was aware of it because we came in at an early stage. Sometimes we come in at the last minute. We do deals at the last minute. There are deals that we come in early. In this case, I recognized the political rift internally with a large organization. It doesn't always happen. Okay, we've got very large organizations that are tight, that are tight at the top, and that makes all the difference. But here, there was a new chief security officer. Hadn't been there long. He came with his beliefs, understandings, experience. Everything's good, and he had a strategy that he'd already put down on the table. He pitched it. He got the buy-in from everyone within the organization. The CIO saw things differently for many different reasons, and everybody below them, well, I would say that there was a bit of respect issues. They didn't really like the security officer. A bit of disrespect to the CIO because he was moving. He didn't keep aligned with the internal strategy that was put forward. So you could see it happening, and it happened. And Microsoft realized it because Microsoft's Microsoft. They have really well trained and good account execs, and they were aware of this political or misalignment internally, and they used the cracks. Now, you could say it's good, bad for the organization. I think it's because of the end result, but I don't think the end result here is a good result. Getting E5 for more or less the same price as E3. Again, in the long term. So yeah, I can talk about each subject for hours, but let's talk a bit about. Well, I want to just summarize what I've talked about around communication and role clarity. I've touched on it as we went through today's talk. Um, Communication is critical. So I have clear communication throughout the organization, top down and then down up. Um, just make sure that you secure approvals, assign roles, responsibilities. You need to map out the relationship, especially in large organizations. Map out the relationship. Which internal stakeholders have Microsoft exec relationship? Who potentially who can be influenced, and I would say who is vulnerable to vendor pressure. Also define who speaks to Microsoft, what they can say, what's the escalation path, and basically don't forget that your executive board is part of the negotiation team. They're not just a rubber stamp. Um, Give them the credit they deserve, and understand that they've been around, they've done a few things, and they're very well connected. So they're part of your negotiation team. Um, I want to touch on. We've got 5 minutes more or less, because then I want to open up for some Q&A. I want you to map. I call it risk mapping. So it's about mapping out everything that's not price. Um, Again, we get fixated with price discounts and additional monetary benefits, but map out the risks around M&A activity. How's that going to impact headcounts? What kind of business models are changing, shifting? The strategic tech direction. What's your cloud strategy? Is there something happening between Azure and AWS or Google? What's your AI roadmap? Yes, you need to have one, even though it's murky waters. If you don't have one, it's also fine. But just make sure you don't get pushed into an AI roadmap. Um, it's also a good time to look at your support structure. Support is changing, requirements are changing, and of course, costs. As we all know about support costs, but again, let's keep that out of this discussion. That's another talk that's going to come up, and areas such as compliance, governance, data security, um, um, global changes in currencies, relationships, all that's going on the macro is is crucial. This is Microsoft. This is global business. This is not a local deal. So those of you that are new maybe to Microsoft negotiations, and we do deal with individuals that it's the first time negotiating a Microsoft deal. They're younger, they're coming up, they've changed positions, and they're not aware of the various um, 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 areas that are going to impact the negotiation. So again, keep an open mind, go macro. Don't only get bogged down by the details. Um, what else do I want to talk about today? I want to talk about your opportunity, and this is where I'm going to wrap up. So we're all about personal relationships, and we don't work with companies. We work with people, and and I say this again and again and again. Individuals drive everything, not the organization. The individuals drive everything. So if you are on this call and you lead the negotiations, this is, yes, it's a great opportunity for you as well, because you're in the spotlight. These huge Microsoft deals come up every 3 to 5 years, and you're going to get board level visibilities, and there's also strategic consequences. So you can influence internal decision making, shape future tech direction, and yes, you are in a position to build up great rapport, business trust across departments. So utilize this as an opportunity for yourself to really position yourself strategically and not tactically through pricing discounts and additional monetary concessions. Uh, I want to leave you with just a final thought. So think about what you can bring to the table. How you as an individual within the organization, with this responsibility that you've got now to drive maybe the most important deal for the company in the next 3 to 5, well, even 10 years, because as I pointed out, the deal it might be a 3-year contract, but it's going to impact the company's strategy for the coming 10 years. I want you to start thinking in that way. I want you to think like Microsoft thinks. Think long term, outside of the frame of the contract term, outside of the specific cost of this deal. The impact is much broader, much wider. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this um, discussion, presentation, talk, whatever you want to call it, that we've had today, is you have a opportunity to really position yourself strategically within the organization, to be part of this paradigm shift. If it's to the cloud, if it's towards AI, if it's really keeping your organization competitive from a business perspective, it's your time. So I'm leaving you with that last um, thought. And if you remember that from everything else, everything's going to come into play. Strategic thinking. Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl. Uh, this is a live event, and we're going to continue a series of these live events. And this, although this series is already pre-planned, we have a few episodes in mind. Please send your feedback, and especially if you want to dive deeper on anything. For example, what we haven't covered today is a very important part, and I think it deserves a special live talk, which is post-deal governance. The negotiations don't stop when you close the deal. They continue immediately, at least for Microsoft. And if you don't have the same mindset, you're prone to losing. I'll put it this way. So please send your suggestions for what you want to dive deeper, because what you heard today is still high level. There's so much behind it. There are so many details. There are so many examples. And trust me, Daryl actually wrote a book, Negotiating with Microsoft, many years ago. The problem why we didn't release the third edition is because every time we finish even drafting that book, everything changes now. It's a never-ending cycle of improvements, and Microsoft is learning faster and faster. Clever customers are learning faster and faster. So this is why these conversations are so important. This is why it's important to be always up to date. So again, please send your suggestions. Please ask your questions. We're going to send to those that registered on LinkedIn, we're going to send you recordings. And if you want to unsubscribe, please let me know. But there's only one person that has unsubscribed in 2 years from receiving the recordings of these events. So we're going to share that with you. And yeah, please come back if you want to watch our previous materials, because suddenly one of our 4 years ago live events, which is just a general training on negotiating with Microsoft remotely, is gaining again popularity on YouTube. We have almost over 500 videos on YouTube, and 1/5 of them are on the topic of negotiations. So learn, continue educating yourselves, and come back and ask questions. And if we can help you, we will help you. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks, Daryl, again.
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure.
Happy day to everyone.
Thank you.
Where's my mouse?